Oh, I do see Team Enculay. Well, there it is. Hi guys, welcome to the 4v4 challenge. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's many 4v4 teams. I can't remember how many off the top of my head, but for now we're starting off with Team GoRaNi versus Team Enculay. So Team GoRaNi is going to have Langley, chaemiko. I'm going to get these names wrong. Just be prepared for that. Soin, and they might be pronounced as something else. Even though they say Soin here, they might be known as Mr. Jim from somewhere else. But I will just call it as I see it for now. So we got Chu over here. Hang on a second. So the top side, basically, the north is Team GoRaNi, and that's Sock as well. And then we have Team Enculay at the bottom. So Chu, Night Elf, Shocker, playing as Undead. I'm going to have fun with that name. Zampa is the purple orc. And the Scourge, playing as the pink undead. So we're going to see a fair bit of undead imbalance by the looks of it. So just in case you're wondering why this might look a bit weird, it's because we're playing on War3 Arena and it has true HD, whereas I play on stretched HD. But I'm so used to stretched HD that this looks weird and wrong to me. But it's going to take a few games to get used to it. It feels like it's been pulled out a little and then up a lot, and sometimes when that happens you feel a little bit uncomfortable afterwards. It takes a bit of getting used to, so you just gotta hang in there and see how it feels. Maybe you'll enjoy it if you give it enough time. So we got Wisps on the scout. We got, oh yeah, the Night Elves are doing their diligent job of scouting away. I'm just going to check if there's anything else on the side. Oh, there could be lag or something. One of the players is deciding to throw down a pause. I guess they were just making sure everything's good. Just putting the old map hack on. If they did that, they'd probably get instantly banned. Because on War3 Arena, it's much harder to hack, because there's multiple ways to basically get caught in it. And essentially, don't hack is what I would say, but you know, if you're going to try it on War3 Arena, you have even less chance, because you'll just end up getting banned. And IP banned. It's not like on Battle.net, where people can just hack and not have a problem. This is much harder. So we should get some good, legit games. All of the casters, myself, Back to Warcraft, I think Deport Gaming and Wolf, should be streaming with a 3-minute delay. So at least the players won't be able to take too much of advantage from what we're saying. And I'll try to be as technical as I can, but I'm not the most technical type of person. So I'm more kind of humorous, I would like to think, with my commentary. But we'll see how we go on. So the map, Northshire, is, well, it's the latest version of Northshire. All of the maps that are going to be played in this tournament will be the latest version, aka from the PTR itself, that place that no one plays on. Yeah, you remember a while ago, Blizzard basically opened up the PTR for Warcraft 3 in the latest patch, and they said, hey everyone, play on the PTR, and then no one did. Yeah, these are the maps from the PTR, so these are the maps that we could potentially see on the Battle.net ladder if they ever do end up doing a proper update for Warcraft 3 at some point. And Northshire, it's a pretty cool map actually. It of course supports 4 versus 4 RT. I don't know if it supports 3v3 as well. Obviously there would be open spaces if it did, but we're looking at all of these maps from a 4v4 perspective. And yeah, this map has quite a few things to do just on the outskirts alone. You've got your expansion, you've got laboratory, which is a fairly tough camp, and then you've got this kind of secret Red Creek camp, which is full of golems. And they're very tough, but you should be able to get a pretty sweet item from them, but they're not exactly super easy to do. If I was Night Elf, I might set up an Ancient of War to sort of like take down the trees. We've got Shocker, who's going for a very early creep on a red, well, it's not a Red Creek camp, but it may as well be one. It's got the Bandit Lord. He's not easy, and he's making this look pretty easy actually. He's used a lot of Rod Necromancy. It feels like he might know what he's doing here, so this is good practice here, putting into place. So that looks like theory put into practice, really. I reckon he's tried this before, because that's pretty cool. The Sacrificial Skull to give the additional healing over time allows him to get a really nice start. Although he wasn't very rewarded, because the Lion Horn of Stormwind is pretty crap as it goes. But it's not the worst, because it's still an aura, and this is a 4v4, so remember that any items, or that grunt, any items that provide an aura will be beneficial, even if they are bad items. And this is lovely blocking there by Soin, doing a good job there saving that grunt. I'm going to try to keep an eye on all of the battles. At some point I might end up switching the team colours. I'll try to keep them as the players are for now. Just remember top versus bottom. So if you look at the minimap and you see yellow's attacking blue, you know that's yellow from Team GoRaNi, and that's blue from Team Enculay. So think of it that way. But if need be, then I can always change the colours so it's a lot more clear, red versus blue. But we'll keep it like this for now. I know that when I do these shoutcasts, which I've done in the past, also Priest of the Moon taken down there. Must have been a nice little surround there. Ooh, an expansion for the Night Elf player, courtesy of the Undead. That's good team play, that is, right there. Humans being quite curious. He's about to bump into the Scourge, who was just about to start creeping, but he needs to get out of there fast, otherwise he's going to get gangbanged. That's a 1 versus 2 situation now. I don't care how unbalanced you are with your Undead. It's not going to be enough. Okay, there was a Force Town portal just over here on the left-hand side, which is kind of rough because there's a lot of pressure from the bottom team, Enculay versus Team GoRaNi. Oh, Soin, just trying to stay alive. Definitely needs some help from his allies. Who's going to come in? The grunts are really blocked. They need to get out of that position. They were opened up a little bit there by the Fiends, but I suppose they can't commit too much to this. There's a lot of water elementals, but chaemiko doesn't have too much else other than a few footmen. Oh, so much pressure on that Tauren Chieftain, enjoying the coils, eating them one after another. So it looks like the Scourge really wants this creep camp. There's a lot of contestment between him and the other undead, Sock. So we've got Fiends at 1-0 upgrade. So in case you're curious as to how 4 versus 4 RT plays, these players will give you a good idea, because a lot of the people that are in this tournament, particularly the ones that you're watching right now, are of a very high caliber. Like, some of these are actually professional gamers. So if you're curious, oh, what should I be doing at this point or in these 4 versus 4 RT games, you can use this video as well as other videos on the series as a bit of a guidance towards that, because I'm not a professional. People sometimes ask me, hey Woody, you're so good, how did you get to be so good? And I say, I know I look like I'm really good, but I'm not. And the reason why is because I'm reckless and I make everything up. Whereas these guys are a lot more calculated. They'll know what they're doing for the most part. They have a calculated plan. They know the game inside and out. Now this expansion is up, but it just needs to get set in motion, and then they can start benefiting from the extra gold that will provide. What you're going to see a lot is Fiends and Huntresses. This is almost like watching a 2 versus 2 game in some sense. Huntresses are massed. The Priestess of the Moon obviously has the True Shot aura, benefiting both the Fiends and the Huntresses, which adds up to a lot of damage at this point in the game when the players are starting to hit 50 food. Going straight for the main base, but it's almost a Black Citadel, so it's definitely got a lot of health. I think the Scourge is in a pretty good position here. Nice and bottlenecked for those Fiends. Oh, the Zampa's coming in there. Missing a little opportunity there with the stomp, but I guess he got a bit overexcited. So we got a nice little position for Lorelei and Sock as well. But remember that the Undead heals on the Scourge. Lightning Shield being used by Sock there to put pressure on Scourge. Very nicely done there. That's an item. Oh, Scourge just narrowly getting away. Oh, he actually went for the actual town portal there. He wasn't going to take any more chances beyond that point, which is very unfortunate because he had to town portal inside of his own base and buy some time. And that's not good for Zampa, who's on his own. Now they're regrouping, and it looks like Loreliot's got himself in a bit of a tricky position. Sock is bouncing back and forth. I'm going to keep an eye on the left-hand side as well, just to give you guys a bit of a grander scheme. I won't get too tunnel visioned. So on the left-hand side, we've got Soin under pressure from Shock and, Chu. So coming back to the east-hand side, we've got the Orb of Corruption, which is going to make a monumental difference here. This should allow the Scourge and Zampa to push this attack back. Oh, the Lich is down. And now I think that's got to be enough to push them out of the base. Coming back over to the left-hand side, Soin with so many grunts. You see a lot of mass of tier 1 units. This is not something you typically see in 4 versus 4 random team games. In 4 versus 4 random team games, you're going to see people fast teching towards air. And they can get away with it because it's random teams. If it was organised teams, it would be much harder to pull that off. And remember that if you've got teammates that are going mass Fiends, they are a very solid form of anti-air with their web ability that can capture air. So your able to go heavy tier 1 grunts a bit more comfortably and not look like a noob. Chu got mass huntresses as well, ground units. Shocker getting the frost armor and the death knight, but watch out, Mountain King wants a pace of action and Shocker is getting out. Town portal denies the bolt, and it looks like Soin keeps to stay alive just for a little bit longer. He's been under so much pressure from the beginning of this game. So we've got Elimination versus Chu. Battle of the Huntresses. On the east hand side, we've got the Scourge finishing off a creep camp with Zampa. Socks moving into the Scourge's base for a bit of pressure. We've got the shop being utilized for scroll of healing and protection. That's something you'll see a lot because you're going to see a large amounts of armies rolling around, so scroll of protection and healing is actually very beneficial at this stage. So double barracks over here. Looks like double, yeah, a lot of double barracks is really doubling down essentially on the Huntress play. In case you're curious as to why I'm not playing this, I would probably have played with Sexy Time, but neither of us were too committed to actually sorting out a team because, well, I can't speak for Sexy Time, but I'm definitely pretty lazy. That town portal is a bit unfortunate. He probably wanted to get that creep camp done, but he has to move in here to defend his ally. And it looks like he's in a good position for it. Even the Ancients of War are moving in, but they're slowly getting clumped by their allies. It's not too good. Oh, the double Huntress kill. Wipeout from the Shockwave. That's a beautiful thing to see. The Crypt Lord, Frost Armor, hankering in there, doing what he does best, tanking it up. I think Lorelei is going to have to shift out of this one. On the left, on the east-hand side, sorry, we've got Sock versus the Scourge. It's really a battle of the town portals. You can see how much action happens. It's not sort of like quiet for 15 minutes and then attack someone with mass frostworms. It is back and forth constantly. So the question is how many good engagements can you get? How many town portals can you enforce? That is really key to this style of gameplay. Alright. Chu and Shocker eating up chaemiko? I think it's chaemiko. Yeah, chaemiko's footman over there. So is the middle really being utilized? Mostly for the shop. Just purchasing scroll of healing. I don't think I've seen any mercs be picked up on this map. I don't think they're bad mercs, but I think players stick to their Huntresses and their Fiends. The Fiends are still sticking with the 1-0 damage because essentially they're trying not to get hit. They're mostly defensive. Oh, chaemiko with tanks. This is really going to sort of mix up the gameplay now. It's going to be a bit harder to back and forth when tanks can level a base quite quickly. It's only one tank for now, but when they start to build up to 4 or 5, it's really going to push a pressure on. Oh, Blizzard. I don't know if chaemiko went for Blizzard at the start or whether he retrained to it, but it totally makes sense to retrain to it if you did have Water Elementals. I think he had Water Elementals earlier on, so he must have retrained to Blizzard. Alright, nice Shockwave there. Tauren Chieftain, a valuable asset as well in team games. Not only for the aura, but the Shockwave is very valuable. You've got the War Stomp. I like that just because it's so much control, but Shockwave is the one that does the real damage, and the damage is the key here in big fights like this. Shockwave has a higher cap than a lot of spells, so you can get a lot of damage out of it, basically, per cast. Those Huntresses of Lorelei are really starting to take over. This is a big threat at the moment for the... well, it's looking really, really harsh. So they're getting back. Over on the east-hand side, we've got Undeads fighting against one another. The epic battle between the Scourge and Sock continues. Triple heroes for each. It looks like they're opting for the Crypt Lord as their third hero. Both players from both teams. Unfortunately for Sock, he's pressured into using his town portal because of the 1 versus 2 situation he was facing. Otherwise, he was looking fairly good there, but that was very even. Well, you know what I said about those Steam Steam engines? Yeah, this is what happens when Steam engines come out. That is rough. That happened so fast I didn't even capture that during everything. And that was just, by the looks of it, 4 or 5 tanks at most. A couple of them would have got killed in that period of time. So yeah, Steam engines can be regarded as a little bit unfair in regards to essentially how they can turn the tide of a battle very quickly, and there's not really many easy ways to outplay them, particularly as a Night Elf player. It's just rough. especially in 4 versus 4 RT, where you're having to, say, defend your allies a lot, and you haven't got the resources to put down enough Ancients of War and whatnot to deal with those steam tanks. This is very nasty. Essentially, this is a really big win right now for Team GoRaNi versus Team Enculay. Remember, Enculay's at the bottom. Steam tanks are moving on to the bottom. They've put up an epic fight. It's been so close between the teams, but honestly, those steam tanks have just completely and utterly changed the dynamic of this. Essentially, well, yeah, this just completely changed the dynamic. It now takes the pressure off of Soin, because he can now buckle down and concentrate on the units he's going for, which are headhunters at this point, probably transitioning to berserkers for some level of anti-air. Steam tanks are just basically ripping through expansions, bases, whatnot. Chu is not going to have this Tree of Life for much longer. Even if he uproots that, it still can't hold up to those tanks. They're 2-1, so they're not exactly shabby either. They've got good upgrades. Okay, Sock and the rest sort of grouping around the middle. The same for Team Chu. Moving on to Soin. So Soin actually had a fair bit of time bought for him thanks to the tanks, but now it looks like that time is up, and the pressure once again remains at his base. Will they be able to defend it? We will find out. Keep tuned on that. It looks like a town portal from chaemiko. Oh, that was the start of a town portal. And that's just because he's got the blizzard. So he doesn't even need the whole of his army. Just coming in with his heroes. So he's clearly sort of like transitioned to mass tanks, and he's going to operate with his heroes just to help defend teams whilst being aggressive with the tanks. Like some guerrilla tactics right here. And not the Harambe ones. Okay. Soin decided to do a little bit of cheeky creeping, because why not? If your base is under attack, may as well get what you can. You're going to see a fair bit of micro here. He's got to be careful with that. Headhunters aren't the strongest creepers, but with enough of them, you can at least dance around. Oh, that lightning shield saves at the end, but now the Torrent doesn't get too close. The wizard has his way. Okay, coming back down to the bottom. chaemiko got to do a fair bit of damage, but he didn't manage to deny the town portals. So they managed to save the base, but not the main. Looks like Soin's finished that off. This is escalated very quickly. So this map, it might seem like it's fairly closed, and each player is kind of like within their own island. But on that island are quite a few large open paths where players can sort of like travel and traverse. Oh, nice creep in there. Blizzard, Mountain King, all you need. Okay, we're going to switch to the team colours just quickly, just to give you a bit more of a glimpse as to how the map dynamic is going. Chu's retaken his base, but he's still lost that expansion. The Night Elves tend to take a lot of the expansions. The other players will creep it for them, and the Night Elves will take the expansions and then feed the other players later on, so they can mass up stronger armies. So undead armies are typically stronger in 4 versus 4 RT. Oh my goodness, these tanks. That's another base that's going to go. So undeads and Night Elf bases, I feel personally, are the most vulnerable to steam tank or steam engines. Oh, that's nice. The Blizzard, Shockwave, that's doing some nice pressure there. Pushing Shocker back. Shocker's going to need to regroup with his allies over here. But there's a town portal coming in. Or is it just the Archmage? No! It's all of that! 76 food of undead imbalance. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Lich with the Orb of Corruption, the Orb of Qualm, doing some lovely DPS. Oh, Priestess of the Moon from Lorliot, feeling the pressure. Mountain King trying to get back. Denied. Paladin perhaps healing off cooldown. Probably using the Priestess of the Moon. This is just an absolute mess now, so we've got to swap the team colours at moments like this, just so you get a better grasp as to who's who. Choose Priestess of the Moon, probably going to be next up for the slaughter in a moment. I'd say that Sock looks pretty strong right now. Destroyers being absorbed up here from the Obsidian statues to add to the pressure on the battlefield. Oh, down goes Sock's Crypt Lord. No coil to save. We've got a bunch of headhunters. Don't know whether to get back or not. I think they're going to move back. Many, many destroyers at this stage. So the Scourge and all of that managed to put on a good, decent amount of pressure. But whilst that pressure, I mean, a good defensive move there. But you got chaemiko here with the tanks. Just they're gonna run away with this base. You might have Cigarettes turn into Spiritas, but that is going to get leveled by those tanks. It's not going to take much at all from those tanks to take that down. Right. It looks like Soin is going to lose his base. So Soin is from Team GoRaNi. And unfortunately for Chu, well, I say that expansion, his main base has once again been destroyed. And all he has left is this expansion in his allies' position. But Shocker, his ally, is almost losing his main base as well. So that really only leaves 2 players there for Team Enculay. Zampa with the level 5 Tauren Chieftain. There's a... Oh, is that surround going off? The Hunters are trying to get in a position. There was a little cheeky Kodo there whilst he was running away. I like that. That was very nice. Very subtle. Town portal being used. Feeling the pressure of getting back. So, Soin has lost his base. So it's kind of... I would still say that the advantage looks like it's going towards GoRaNi, in case you weren't absolutely certain. But the teams have been very well... You know, like the fights have been very back and forth. It hasn't felt too one-sided. It's only once the tanks started to step into play that it really start to mix things up. So it goes to show you how important it is to have a human ally that can provide those steam tanks. Because we know Undead have the Frostworms that are really strong. Although, oh, nice catch there on the tanks. That's going to help at least alleviate some of the pressure. But there's still more coming in here. The Scourge only with the Necropolis. So not a Black Citadel. That won't hold up to too much pressure from the tanks. So a Town Portal is being forced here. Oh, but he's got the Frostworms now. So you saw quite a lot of Destroyers. But Frostworms really are quite a beautiful thing, at least in terms of imbalance. Destroyers are still very, very good. I guess it depends on how many spellcasters your opponents are likely to have. But in this game, there haven't been that many of them, so there hasn't been too much of a need for the mass of Destroyers. You could go quite heavier on the Frostworms and not feel too punished for it. Especially when Steam Tanks are concerned. Steam Tanks, I mean, they can hit Frostworms, but you need a crazy amount of them to be too much of a threat. Particularly when the Undead can have, like, level 5, typically, within this sort of, like, stage of the game. There's level 5 now. So you have at least level 2 aura. Oh, Zampa protecting his Tauren Chieftain from the bolts. But is he going to be able to get out of this situation? He's actually got a tiny Great Hall within his inventory. But where's the opportunity to use it? Right now he's got to concentrate on this fight. And the fight's going pretty damn good. chaemiko losing his Archmage. Team Enculay making a bit of a comeback here from down below. But up at the top, Shocker. Oh yeah, Shocker's on Team Enculay as well. Hang on a second, this is going mad. Alright, here we go. So Sock must be returning up to the base at the top here to defend versus Shocker, who was getting a lot of damage done up here on chaemiko, who's lost his workshop. Ah, he's got 2 workshops actually at the expansion. He's okay. I was going to say, who's going to build these tanks? Where are these tanks going to come from? Well, we know now. He's still got them at the expansion. So, Team GoRaNi forcing the town portal, and the game will start to calm down a little bit, although it's been very hectic. We've got an aggressive expansion from Chu, who just doesn't know when to say no with these trees of life. Despite the despite the tanks, the trees of life keep popping up. I don't think they can hold on to that one. They probably have to let that go, although they might have a few opportunities to snipe. That's a pretty big army, though. I'm not sure how many opportunities you have to snipe off there. So that tree doesn't look like it's going to maintain its position. Over here, we have the shop being utilized once again. Invulnerability potions. Very nice. That got picked up for the Death Knight. So we got the triple hero from Scourge with the level 6 Death Knight, level 5 Lich. Oh, that Destroyer. And then the level 4 Crypt Lord. Right, starting to see some Taurens coming in now. So the Orc's job is to be tanky and provide a little bit of Kodo Beast love, with the Tauren Chieftain just being the awesome hero that he is. In the middle, we've got a bit of a battle, with Sock being slightly caught out, having to use his invulnerability potion there, because the Death Coil just wasn't quite ready. On the east-hand side, Sock's lost his base. Oh my goodness. This is really big news now, because that means Team Enculay can turn this back into a 2 versus 2. Even though you still have like Shocker left alive and Chu, all they've really kind of got is their main bases. They still have armies, but they don't really have the buildings to reproduce those armies if they were to lose them. So essentially I'm kind of looking at it from somewhat of a 2v2. Look at those Frostworms, so many of them. So this is a huge win for them. As long as they don't lose too much of it in the middle. Oh, that Death Knight's got no way to get out. No town portal. Shocker's going to lose his main hero. That's pretty rough. But the rest of his army should be able to escape. The Scourge. Will he be able to keep this base alive? Because I'm sure that Team GoRaNi are going to want blood. But they are actually continuing to chase Shocker. They are not letting go of his heroes. 2 town portals coming in here. Scourge and Shocker. We're turning the colours back. I'll flip in between the colours, and now you can see how everyone's running away, because that is a lot of Frostworms. Town portal being used. So this means that not only have they got to sort of keep destroying this base over here, because the damage is done. They can come and finish that off, but the damage is done. There's no acolytes mining. There's no town. There's no ghouls on wood. There's nothing to worry about resource-wise there. So they've done some amazing damage in that position. Alright, more tanks, more tanks. Can we have more tanks, please? No. Flying machines. Because of just how many Frostworms there are now. Once you get to a critical mass of steam tanks or Frostworms, 4 versus 4 RT, it's almost over. It really is such a dynamic... Look at that, those Dryads. They're not upgraded, but there's a lot of them, because he's forced into going mass Dryads instead of the Huntresses now, because of just how many Frostworms. Frostworms, like the tanks, are changing the dynamic. I'm going to use these words a lot, but they are changing the dynamic, the flow of the game. They are forcing the other players to tech their units and change how they play. Because when it was just a couple of Frostworms, not a big deal. That many Frostworms, it's very hard to deal with that kind of nuking. Alright. So chaemiko with a very decent amount of fly machines. 3-1 upgrades as well. Very nasty. It looks like another base is going to be sacrificed here, which really only leaves the one base from chaemiko. I'm so surprised, because I thought Team GoRaNi were going to win this. As soon as those steam tanks started to edge the difference and take out those bases, I thought that as long as the team battles can be even, which they were for the most part, the steam tanks would make the difference, because they're doing the siege whilst the split pushing and all that is going on. Let's switch the colours back so you can see just how much red is going on here. There's a fair bit of blue, which is really the dominant force of those Frostworms and the Taurens. But we've also got chaemiko's fly machines. They don't look too threatening, but if they can get into a big battle versus this, they might be able to do some good damage. The Tauren aren't going to hit them. It's only a few fiends that can web them. There's so much running away, though, because there's only so many town portals you can buy, and oh my goodness, that Tauren Chieftain down for the count. This is looking so bad for Team GoRaNi now. Forced consistently into using town portals, or just having to run because they can't afford any more town portals. There's not even any available in the shop. I'd be surprised if there was any available, to be honest, the amount of town portals that have to get bought in a game like this. So chaemiko really focusing on the triple hero action. I mean, that can work, but there has to be far fewer Frostworms. Flying machines moving in. I can see the benefit of the flying machines, although, look at this. Chu is almost prepared for this. I don't know if he saw those flying machines at some point. He must have done. Even though I thought, oh, well done, Chu. You got quite a few archers there ready for this. Doesn't look like it makes much of a difference. Understandably so. 3-1 flying machines, and there's at least 2 groups of those. Basically, I say there's about 24 flying machines there, if I had to count. And, yeah. That's a good move, because not only is it a good resource versus the Frostworms, it's not the perfect counter to Frostworms, which is why you haven't seen it used particularly that often versus Scourge's Frostworms, but unfortunately down goes another hero for Team GoRaNi. 2 heroes. Oh, that's rough. So it's really up to chaemiko to continue his siege, but he's got a lot to siege. He's got a lot to go through, whereas Team GoRaNi do not. Team GoRaNi obviously being red right now. They are running out of bases. They are running out of heroes. They are running out of units. chaemiko pulling back with his heroes to help defend in this situation, but the Paladin taking so much damage there immediately, and no repercussion there for the Death Knight. Mountain King perhaps trying to get into position for a Stormbolt. Is he going to commit to the Fiend instead? Yes, he just wants to at least pick off the experience, but damn, is that Zampa coming in there with a mighty stomp. Oh my goodness. This really does look like the turning point. Of all of the turning points, I don't know where you go from here. There's too many bases to siege. The Scourge isn't even with these guys up here at the top, and they're still winning this. The flying machines are moving in though, so let's see how they do versus these Frostworms. The Fiends can web quite a few, the heroes can do a fair bit of damage, but those Frostworms are dropping very quickly. These flying machines are really taking care of the biggest threat on the team. Oh, he's going to save a few of them. No, just 2 of them. That was a big deal, but unfortunately I feel like it's a little bit too late. Perhaps those flying machines should have dealt with the Frostworms, but this is hindsight talking. It's so easy to say that in hindsight. It was a choice. Do you siege? Do you destroy the enemy's abilities to pump resources to produce more units? Do you take out their bases to produce those units in the first place? Or do you try to take out the Frostworm threat? And it looks like it's not enough. GG is calling, and Team Enculay take the win.